Now, as I said, we are going to conclude today's webinar with a panel session with all of our speakers from today. So I will bring those, our speakers all back up on screen so we can ask a few questions. Now, as I've said, we are sort of getting close to our 2:30 conclusion time. So what I might do, speakers, is we'll ask all these questions pretty quick fire so we can move through as many as we can, as many as possible. We're still waiting for a couple more speakers to come on screen, but Ian, I can see I've got you, so I might start with a question for you. How can IoT solution providers improve their engagement with government procurement channels, as they typically prefer tendering processes that I believe limit innovation and reduce the benefits of IoT and smart city solutions?
I'll choose my words carefully. I completely agree. I can sympathise with the frustration. What we've done internally, and what I think people generally need to try and do is that trial, prove, then procure. So the procurement shouldn't be the first stage. Understanding what the value proposition and the business benefit is should be the first stage, because otherwise you're buying something without knowing what its utility is. How do you know what the value is, would be my argument, and that's one I've had some success with internally. So I think governments need to stop trying to procure the whole thing in one go and be a little more iterative and give the market a chance to respond and learn jointly.
Great, thank you for that, Ian, really appreciate it. Now, Tony, a question for you. How do you see the NB IoT technology in supplementing LoRaWAN?
Look, that's a really good question. I think I sort of alluded to it in the presentation where, effectively, we're kind of realists. We do believe that LoRaWAN provides the lion's share of the use case applications that most cities, communities and enterprises are going to need to use. However, there are applications where a higher degree of throughput is required, and you might need something like an NB-IoT or a cellular interface or a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth or some other technology. And that happens in multiple different levels. One way I would suggest that we do it is, again, through our process of end-to-end DL, we can actually provide you with a data proxy ingestion layer, which then brings that data directly in through a normalized, harmonized data. So we're doing it today. We're doing it for Gold Coast, so we're doing it for Agriculture Victoria through a large number of solutions providers. So it's a thing that we're doing today.
Okay, excellent. Now, Enrique, can you please describe the extent of the waste management project being developed in Bogota? I know you did mention this briefly I think you answered it on screen, but if you could do it vocally for everyone now, we'd really appreciate that.
Sure. Well, what I can say here is that it's an on-demand collection waste project. We have over nearly 1,000 containers right now over there. And I will be happy to share more details by email or anything after the event. So those are the highlights.
Yep, absolutely. Look, no worries at all. And what we'll do to our delegates that did ask that question, we will share that question with Enrique, and we will pass your email address on to him so you can continue that conversation offline as well. Now, another question for Ian Hatton, and I think others will be able to give us their insights here as well. What has been your approach to running IoT and SCADA in parallel? Do you see there always being a need for two distinct systems, or eventually a hybrid single system? And that question is from Adrian Flather from City West Water Intelligent Network and Assets Team Leader.
The reality, I think, is too early for us to be able to answer that question. We're running it as a hybrid, very early stages. I think there's you've got two cultures almost in the traditional OT operators. Generally prefer what they understand and what they know and what they've been working with. LoRaWAN, in our experience, is a relatively new network technology. So I think the OT guys have got to get more familiar with it and migrate more and more things on as they see the value. Ultimately, I don't know whether there's only one solution. Probably a hybrid of some kind will always exist.
Sure. Ian McLeod, I might go to you for a question. I'm interested in advice on advocacy principles for greater funding for R&D, design, installation and agile development of IoT networks for whole of life infrastructure when advocating at the federal government level. what are some key recommendations for government, and what has worked for your organisations in securing funding?
Look, I think it's a little bit like that second last slide I showed, which talks about the community and environment. There's a nexus of significant issues that we need to deal with and that we're seeing every day on the news. So you've got Taylor, who's come out with a technology-led emissions reduction program. So IoT fits very well into that. We've got water security issues. So again, IoT fits well into that, and so does spatial. We've got a crisis in terms of our economy and stimulus funding out there at the moment. So we can fix or address some of our biggest problems, including employment, etc., by bringing these things together. So I'd be trying to tie those ends together and put an advocacy position on that.
Excellent. Thanks, Ian. Now, Tony, I might go to you quickly. I know that you had some insights on that, that Bogota question. Tony, do you want to share your thoughts there? Tony, you're just muted. Can you unmute yourself?
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
There we go.
Yeah, I have a tendency to do that, right? Look, it was more around the whole SCADA and LoRaWAN parallel operation, really specifically. I was just trying to grab you there while that comment was going on. Our experience across the board is that these things should run in parallel with each other until such time as the various use cases make sense, and that the operators of these and the operational technology specialists within the organizations actually see the value proposition that they're looking for. You know, primarily LoRaWAN has its incredible benefit for deep penetration, long range coverage, but time series payload, low bandwidth operation. If you need something which is real time, really providing you with a high level of low latency, high bandwidth kind of operation, don't look at LoRaWAN. Look at some other form of SCADA operation or a dedicated network integration. But that doesn't mean that you can't run them in parallel with each other, integrate them into the same payload-based time series database, and get the benefit of comparing and contrasting the data from two sources. And I think that's the key. So you don't need to necessarily make a decision today and say everything runs on LoRaWAN, but you need to be ready to say, let's pick the right technology with the right cost profile against the particular right use case application.
Yeah, no, some very good points there, Tony. Thank you for that. Tony, I might go to you with another question, and I'll ask you to lead off, but then I'll get insights from the rest of the panel as well. How do you approach cyber risk in these operations? You know, do you have multiple levels? What's the general approach?
This is super important. You know, I follow the cybersecurity risk on a global basis on a day-to-day basis. This is something which fills my email every single day. And so I watch this with great interest. We will see that the latest interaction between the IEEE rollout for deployment of cybersecurity standards for specifically around IoT deployments, and it's super important. And as I mentioned in my presentation, this is a inside-out approach. Our, for example, network protects the network by means of communications between the deployment of a gateway and the network server. And we do that by means of the highest level of security protocols that we can get between those two devices. We also then need to protect the way we interact between whether it's cellular backhaul or whether it's Ethernet backhaul or IP backhaul. And we need to overlay over the top of that the appropriate security measure which measures and delineates the protection between having something which is just open standard or whether it ends up being something which we can protect. And that's something that we as an organization watch very carefully on a day-to-day basis. It's also very important that we take the approach around cybersecurity of a policy-based least access environment. So in other words, the person who needs to get access to the information that we're providing it, they get that access. Everybody else doesn't get that access. So it's very important to have the right grouping architecture, data management, device management, and security protocols built all the way between the device protocol, which is right out at the edge, through the application at the other edge, and then everything in between. Now, that only comes when people understand network topology and they understand how to deliver that on a scalable basis. And that's something that we know how to do.
Fantastic. Ian Hatton, I might go to you for your thoughts on this question and the cybersecurity issue, because I know that as in local government, that's going to be something that's top of mind for you.
Yeah, I won't pretend I can talk the technology like Tony can. From our perspective, all of these cyber risks are really about identifying them early and designing the solutions based on a set of standards and policies that you adopt that are widely understood. So I think from a government perspective, we generally with these things are more on the low risk tolerance environment. So providing the assurance up front and demonstrating how it works in a very simple to understand diagram is really how we've handled it. And then we've let the technical guys get into the detail. But I think that immediate assurance that it's well architected, it's properly designed and defined, and that the systems in place is the critical thing for the decision makers to understand up front.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for your insights there. Now, look, just looking at the time, we have gone a little bit over time. Tony, I'm just going to quickly go to you because I believe you have a quick message to share about the Gold Coast LoRa Alliance event that's happening in October 2021.
Yes, 100%. Ian didn't mention it. He's way too humble. Through a large amount of lobbying and work, collectively, we've managed to get the Gold Coast as a sponsor city for the October 2021 LoRa Alliance global event. And I just wanted to make that little pitch here to make sure that everyone knows that that's coming. It's a thing. We're going to be past all of this drama right now by then, and this is going to be a really major event for the Gold Coast and for Australia. Thanks very much.
Oh, fantastic! It's great to have that mentioned and brought to everyone's attention, and I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say it's great to have something to look forward to a little bit down the track. So look, as I say, given the time, we'll wrap up the panel now. Delegates, for those who've asked questions that we weren't able to get to in this session, as I've mentioned, we will be forwarding those to each of the speakers, and they will get back to you over due course over the next week or so. So looking at the time, it is 2:35, so it is time to wrap things up. I'd just like to say a few things to finish up. A huge thank you, first of all, to all of our speakers who joined us today and shared their expertise with everyone. And a huge thank you to you, all of our delegates that tuned in to watch the conference at home. We really appreciate having you here and being able to share some of this knowledge with you. I'd like to extend another big thank you to our sponsors for today's event again. That is NNN-Co, NZen and Wellness Tech Group. Thank you again for your involvement in helping us put together today's event. Later this week, speaker presentations will be shared with you all, and you will receive a link to a survey about today's event. If you could take the time to fill that out, it's just a short 2-minute survey, but if you could take the time to fill that out, we really would appreciate it, because again, it does help us improve these free events for you in the future. Now, when we finish up today's event, you will see the contact details for Fiona Day from NNN-Co up on screen. If you do have any questions following on from today's webinar, feel free to reach out to Fiona and she'll be more than happy to help you out. So once again, thank you again for joining us. It's time for us to say goodbye. Thanks again for being with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you at another online conference soon.